Hello and good evening, viewers. You are watching Sansad Television and this is the news with me, Rashika. Before we take you through the top stories of the day in detail, a look at the headlines. Centre announces major step to check the rise in current account deficit. Import duty on gold hiked 15%. Excise duty on petrol raised by 6 rupees and diesel by 13 rupees per litre to ensure domestic availability. Ban on single-use plastic takes effect across the country. Restriction imposed on production, import, distribution, sale and use. A two-day special session of Maharashtra Assembly from 3rd of July to be held. Supreme Court refuses urgent hearing on fresh petition against rebel MLAs. Flood situation in Assam critical. Over 29 lakh people displaced. Landslide killed 17 people in Manipur. Many still feared buried. Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra begins in Puri. President, Vice President and Prime Minister greet people. Rath Yatra also held in other parts of the country. A quick look at other important stories in our Flash News segment. Prime Minister Modi speaks to Russian President Vladimir Putin over phone. Reiterates need for dialogue and diplomacy on the Ukraine conflict. Global energy and food situation also discussed. DRDO carries out maiden flight of autonomous flying wing technology demonstrator in Chitradurga, Karnataka. Government warns education and technology companies on unfair trade practices. Stringent guidelines to come up if unfair practices are not curbed. Government working with all stakeholders towards creating holistic health ecosystem. Union Health Minister says affordability, accessibility and quality of health services will be key. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal to release third edition of the ranking of states on support to startup ecosystems 4th of July. India and Pakistan exchange list of civilian prisoners in their custody. Indian side has 309 Pakistani civilian prisoners and 95 fishermen. The Pakistani list has 49 civilian prisoners and 633 fishermen. Pradhan Mantri formalization of micro food processing enterprises scheme completes 2 years. Scheme currently implemented in 35 states and union territories. DOPT orders mass promotion of over 8,000 central government employees. Over 4,700 personnel are from the Central Secretariat Service. Russia starts grain shipments from occupied Ukraine. A vessel carrying 7,000 tons of cereal leaves the port city of Berdyansk to go to friendly countries. Xi Jinping defends China's rule at handover anniversary. One country, two systems model of ruling Hong Kong has worked in protecting the city and must continue long term. Moving on to our business news segment, for our top story tonight is a big major affecting the economy. The government has taken a series of steps to curtail the current account deficit. Among them is a special addition excise duty on exports of petrol and diesel. Excise duty of Rs 6 per litre has been levied on petrol and Rs 13 per litre on diesel. An excise duty of Rs 6 per litre has been levied on aviation turbine fuel. Additionally, a cess of Rs 23,250 per tonne has been imposed on crude oil produced domestically. The move is aimed at boosting domestic supplies at petrol pumps that had dried up in the several states as private refineries preferred exporting fuel. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said the government will review the new taxes every fortnight.
I also should keep India's consumer in mind. We want India to become a refining hub. But therefore, because the thumb rule or the situation assessment is that we are in extraordinary times, that every 15 days this will be assessed to see how things are working out.
The centre also raised import duty on gold to 15% from 10.75% to check the sharp rise in imports. The duty changes come into effect from June 30th. The Finance Ministry said the surge in gold imports is putting pressure on current account deficit. In May, 107 tons of gold was imported. June too saw a significant amount of gold imports. The Finance Minister said the Reserve Bank and the government are keenly watching the situation.
So on the exchange rate of the rupee, I am confident that the Reserve Bank and together with the Ministry of Finance, we are keeping a good eye on it. Yes, what it would have as an impact immediately is imports will become expensive.
In some more business news, on a day that marked the completion of 5 years of the GST regime, Prime Minister Modi praised the goods and services tax as a major tax reform, saying it increased ease of doing business and fulfilled the vision of one nation, one tax. He added that the GST played a major role in defining the economic structure of New India and empowering citizens. On GST Day, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said collections jumped more than 50% in June compared to the same period last year. She added that 1.4 lakh crore is the rough bottom line now for GST collections. In line with the budget provisions this year, some changes in taxation and the stock market came into effect from Friday. These included a 1% tax deducted at source on cryptocurrencies. Earlier in April, a 30% income tax on cryptocurrencies was imposed. Also, as announced earlier by the SEBI, all demat accounts were to be tagged by 30th of June this year. The credit of securities will no longer be allowed in any demat account left untagged. Further, the fee for linking PAN with Aadhaar was doubled from Rs 500 to Rs 1,000. Following the imposition of export duty on petrol, diesel and jet fuel by the government, the BSE Sensex dropped nearly 900 points before recovering to close at 52,907 points, down by 0.21%. Elsewhere in Asia, markets in Tokyo, Seoul, Taiwan and Shanghai ended lower, with Taiwan losing more than 3%. CAC 40, the benchmark French stock market index, and DAX 30, the German index, recorded marginal gains. A ban on single-use plastic items came into effect on Friday. Manufacturer associations have, however, said they are not prepared to implement it immediately due to lack of alternatives. The ban includes wrapping or packaging films, plastic cutlery, straws, and plastic sticks for balloons and earbuds. Here is our report.
The centre on Friday banned a few single-use or disposable plastic products as part of its plan to phase out the material across the country. 19 plastic items have been identified in the first stage with high potential to litter. These range from plastic cups and straws to ice cream sticks. Some disposable plastic bags will also be phased out and replaced with the thicker ones. Thousands of other plastic products like bottles for water or soda or bags of chips aren't covered by the ban. The central government has said that the banned items were identified while keeping in mind the availability of alternatives like bamboo spoons, plantain trays or wooden ice cream sticks. Previous attempts to enforce a plastic ban have focused on specific regions, resulting in varying degree of success.
Evidence from past experiences does tell us that our governing agencies, authorities are extremely understaffed. They are tasked with doing several other things. And so tracking and tracing and enforcing these kind of mechanisms is definitely an additional burden on their very, very limited and strained capacities.
The actual enforcement of the law will be in the hands of state governments and the city municipal bodies. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Shiromani Akali Dal on Friday extended its support to NDA candidate Draupadi Murmu in the presidential elections. Besides all NDA constituencies, parties like the SAD, YSR, Congress, BJD and BSP have also extended support to Murmu. Kickstarting her campaign for the presidential poll, Draupadi Murmu arrived in Solan in Himachal Pradesh on Friday. She met with Chief Minister Jairam Thakur, Union Minister Anurag Thakur, members of the state cabinet, MPs and BJP MLAs from the state. Draupadi Murmu also met with Haryana BJP, JJP MLAs and MPs in Chandigarh. She was welcomed by Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar, Deputy Chief Minister Dushyant Chautala and other senior leaders. The election for the president's post will be held on July 18. Murmu is facing opposition candidate Yashwant Sinha in the election. The Maharashtra Assembly will have a two-day special session from Sunday. The session will see the election of the new Assembly Speaker as well as the vote of confidence for the new government. The cabinet expansion will take place after the government wins the trust vote. According to the State Legislature Secretariat, nomination papers for the Speaker's post can be filed till 12 noon on 2nd of July. On Friday, BJP MLA Rahul Narvekar filed the nomination for the Speaker's election at the Vidyan Bhavan. Chief Minister Eknath Shinde is slated to move the trust vote in the House. Shinde has the support of 39 MLAs from the rebel Shiv Sena group, 10 independents and smaller parties and 106 from BJP.
शिवसेना और भारतीय जनता पक्ष के कुल मिलाकर 50 और 120 170 विधायक हमारे साथ हैं। इसलिए जो फ्लोर टेस्ट होगी, जो विश्वास दर्शक ठहराव होगा या स्पीकर का चुनाव होगा, ये सब खाली केवल औपचारिकता बाकी है। इसमें कोई शंका, कोई कुशंका, किसी भी डर की आवश्यकता नहीं।
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court refused an urgent hearing on the fresh petition against Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and other rebel Shiv Sena MLAs. The court will hear the petitions on July 11. The petition filed by Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray faction has sought the suspension of new Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and 15 other MLAs till a decision is taken on their disqualification. Assam continues to battle devastating flood situation, compounded by the heavy downpour in the state. 8 more people have died in the past 24 hours, taking the death toll to 159. 29 lakh people across 25 districts are impacted by the floods. Most parts of Kachchar district headquarter town Silchar remained waterlogged for the 11th day. Situation in Silchar is critical with a shortage of food, drinking water and medicines. Several rivers, including the Brahmaputra, Beki, Kopili, Barak and Kushiara, are flowing above the danger level at various places. Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma carried out an aerial tour of the severely affected Barak Valley for the 3rd time in 10 days. An interministerial central team has also reached Assam to assess the damage caused by the calamity. The Indian Navy has opened the application process for the recruitment of Agniveers under the new Agnipath scheme. Candidates can apply in the Indian Navy through the official website joinindiannavy.gov.in. They will need to upload a set of original documents along with the form. Indian Navy and Indian Air Force have already started the recruitment process. The 9-day annual Jagannath Rath Yatra started in Odisha's Puri on Friday morning. Thousands of devotees thronged Puri city to pull the chariot of Lord Jagannath. Chariots of Lord Jagannath, his brother Balabhadra and sister Subhadra are taken out for their annual visit to the Gundicha temple in the Yatra. The Yatra will conclude on the 12th this month when the deities will return to the Sri Mandir. The 145th Rath Yatra is being held this year after a gap of 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In Ahmedabad, Union Home Minister Amit Shah performed Mangla Aarti of the deities in the temple on Friday. Gujarat Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel performed the Pahin Vidhi, a symbolic ritual of cleaning the way for the chariots with a golden broom. In Udaipur, the Yatra began amid heavy security, 3 days after the murder of a tailor-triggered communal tension. The district administration gave special permission for the procession amid curfew in the city. The Jagannath Yatra is also being celebrated in Kolkata with much enthusiasm. President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and Prime Minister Modi greeted people on the occasion. Now more news from across the nation. The Indian Meteorological Department has predicted moderate to heavy rainfall for Mumbai and its suburbs in the next 24 hours, even as heavy rains lashed Mumbai on Friday. The forecast has warned of possibility of very heavy to extremely heavy showers at isolated places in the next 24 hours. An orange alert has been issued in the city. Road and suburban rail traffic in Mumbai was disrupted due to heavy downpour. 3 more bodies have been recovered from the debris at a railway construction site in Noni district in Manipur that was hit by a massive landslide on Wednesday night. With this, the death toll in the tragedy has risen to 13, with more than 50 people missing. At least 10 Territorial Army personnel have died in the landslide. Search operations are being conducted by the Indian Army, Assam Rifles, Territorial Army and the National Disaster Response Force. In Madhya Pradesh, polling was held on Friday for the second phase of Panchayat elections. Voting was held for 106 Janpad Panchayats of 47 out of 52 districts of Madhya Pradesh in the second phase. State Election Commissioner Basant Pratap Singh has appealed to the voters to exercise their franchise fearlessly. The first phase polling for Panchayat elections was held on the 25th of June, while the third phase of polling will be held on 8th of July. India has recorded 17,070 fresh cases of COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. 14,413 people have recovered, while 23 people lost their lives. The daily positivity rate stands at 3.40%. BJP's National Executive Meet will begin in Hyderabad on Saturday. The National Executive Meeting will begin on Saturday noon with the inaugural speech of BJP President JP Nadda and conclude with Modi's address. The party is holding its National Executive in Hyderabad after a gap of 18 years. Prime Minister Modi will also address a public meeting in Hyderabad on 3rd of July. It's now time for a short break. On the other side, a heavy goods vehicle that runs on hydrogen and electricity. Stay tuned.
Why does Prime Minister Modi give so much personal attention to the UAE? The leadership of both countries is deeply invested in this relationship. Why the UAE is important to India?
We are committed and we are investing in the infrastructure in India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching the news. Now time for all the main developments from the Russia-Ukraine war front. In the latest development, at least 19 people, including 2 children, have been killed in Russian missile attacks on presidential areas in Ukraine's southwestern Odessa region. 30 others have been injured in the attacks. Ukrainian news reports said missiles struck a multi-story apartment building and a resort area in the early hours of Friday. Russian airstrikes come just a day after the Russia announced withdrawal of its troops from the Black Sea outpost of Snake Island as a gesture of goodwill, after which the threat to Odessa appeared to have potentially eased. Russian forces have captured part of the Lysychansk oil refinery, the governor of Luhansk, Serhiy Haidai, said on Friday. Moscow's troops are attempting to surround Ukraine's military in Lysychansk, the military's last stronghold in Luhansk. He said that the Russian forces were attacking the city from the south and the west. He stated that Russian forces have so far failed to capture the highway connecting Lysychansk to Bakhmut in the neighboring Donetsk region. Russia has hit 68 civilian sites in the second half of June, a Ukrainian brigadier general has said. Oleksiy Gromov stated that the number of Russian missile strikes on Ukraine had more than doubled in the last 2 weeks. He also accused Russia of using inaccurate Soviet-era missiles for more than half of the attacks. Recently, Russia used a Soviet-era Kh-22 missile in the attack on the shopping mall in the Kremenchuk, which killed at least 18 people. Russia has consistently denied targeting civilians. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has signed a joint statement signaling the unity of the country's branches of government to seek EU membership. Ukraine's parliament chairman Ruslan Stefanchuk and Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal also signed the agreement. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has assured Ukraine that the European Union will stand by its side during the EU accession process. Now time for some other global updates. European Union countries have signed off on an agreement banning fossil fuel vehicles. The deal will take effect over a decade, but countries are already exploring options. A UK company is launching what it describes as the first hydrogen and electrically powered heavy goods vehicle in the country. Take a look.
From 2030, all new cars in the UK will have to be electric. Heavy goods trucks need to meet that standard by 2040, but existing batteries are heavy and limit the range that a vehicle can manage. Teva, the makers of this 7.5-ton truck, claim to have overcome the problem. They are combining electric and hydrogen to make trucks travel 300 miles with a 2.7-ton payload. The electric truck does not give off emissions, but production of hydrogen is energy intensive and also expensive. But the company claims it's now possible to use green hydrogen using solar or wind power that is more cost effective. Teva is aiming its trucks at freight companies that pick up goods from distribution hubs. It has plans to put hydrogen supplies at the hubs to service the fleet of trucks, much like electric chargers, but far quicker. It would take the same time to fill a hydrogen truck as it would to fill an HGV vehicle with a tank of diesel. Hydrogen is very energy dense, which means you can put a lot more energy onto the truck. Since batteries are heavy, the use of hydrogen allows the possibility of carrying the extra payload. The cost of the truck is a hefty nearly 2 lakh pounds each, but the company says it would come down as manufacture is scaled up. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And in news from other parts of the world, John Lee was sworn in as the new Hong Kong chief executive. Chinese President Xi Jinping officiated the swearing-in ceremony on the 25th anniversary of handing over of Hong Kong to China by British. Lee was a former security official who oversaw the crackdown on the dissent in the city since 2019. Pro-democracy protests. Apart from adherence to Hong Kong Constitution, Lee also pledged to be accountable to the central government in Beijing. Local authorities evacuated villages and schools as a Myanmar fighter jet accidentally crossed into Thai airspace on a bombing run along the border. The Myanmar jet was providing air support to military ground operation inside Myanmar, just a kilometer away from the border. Military officials from both sides spoke to each other, and Myanmar formally apologized for the incident. The Thai Prime Minister said Thailand did not want to escalate the incident and accepted the formal apology from Myanmar. After 18 days of protest in Ecuador, the government and the indigenous groups came to an agreement. The protest had paralyzed the country, causing the deaths of at least 4 people. The agreement includes reduction in fuel prices, limiting the expansion of oil exploration areas, and prohibition of mining activity in protected areas, national parks, and water sources. The government has 90 days to implement the agreement. Many airport workers in France went on strike, demanding increase in wages to keep up with the inflation. The strike disrupted flight operations across France at a time when the global tourism sector is seeking a sharp rise in number of tourists all across the world after 2 years of pandemic. France's Civil Aviation Authority informed that 17% of scheduled flights out of Charles de Gaulle and Orly airports in Paris were cancelled. Unions say the strike could last through Sunday. Tourists from all over the world have flocked to Rome. Majority are from the United States. Due to the pandemic, many countries had halted the travel. Sistine Chapel and Colosseum remain the top tourist spots for travelers from the US who came in droves the moment Italy loosened safety measures. The UN World Tourism Organization reported that the first quarter of 2022 saw global international arrivals triple up by 182% over the same 3 months last year. Now time for some sporting action. Olympic champion Neeraj Chopra clinched his first top 3 finish at the prestigious Diamond League meeting with a national record-shattering effort, but missed the 90-meter mark by a whisker in a star-studded field in Stockholm. The 24-year-old Chopra opened with a stunning throw of 89.94 meters, just 6 centimeters shy of the 90-meter mark, which remained his best throw. World champion and season leader Anderson Peters of Grenada won the competition with a throw of 90.31 meters. In badminton, double Olympic medalist PV Sindhu lost today in the quarterfinals of the Malaysia Open Super 750 tournament. 7th-seed Sindhu lost to second-seeded Tai Tzu Ying of the Chinese Taipei. Sindhu started brilliantly, winning the first game 21-13, but defending champion Tai was able to make a comeback and win the tie 13-21, 21-15. In the men's singles, HS Pranoy too was unable to reach the semi-finals. Pranoy lost to the 7th seed, Jonathan Christie of Indonesia in the quarter-finals. Pranoy did challenge Christie in both the games, but the 7th seed was able to win the match 21-18, 21-16. In cricket, in the test being played between India and England at the Edgbaston, England have put India in first and the touring side were 193 for 5 a short while back. India were in tight spot with 5 wickets back to the pavilion before reaching the team total of 100. Keeper batsman Rishabh Pant and all-rounder Ravindra Jadeja steadied the ship with half-century partnership for the 6th wicket. This test is being played to complete the 2021 series postponed after the 4th test due to COVID-19 outbreak in the Indian camp. Indian women beat Sri Lanka in the first match of the ODI series played in Palikele by 4 wickets. Fielding first, India restricted the home team to 171 with Renuka Singh and Deepti Sharma taking 3 wickets each. In reply, India reached the target with 4 wickets in hand and 12 overs to spare. Captain Harmanpreet Kaur top scored with 44 runs while opener Shefali Verma made 35. Before we wrap this bulletin, the headlines once again. Centre announces major step to check the rise in current account deficit. Import duty on gold hiked 15%. Excise duty on petrol raised by 6 rupees and diesel by 13 rupees per litre to ensure domestic availability. Ban on single-use plastic takes effect across the country. Restrictions imposed on production, import, distribution, sale and use. 2-day special session of Maharashtra Assembly from 3rd of July. Supreme Court refuses urgent hearing on fresh petition against rebel MLAs. Flood situation in Assam critical. Over 29 lakh people displaced. Landslide killed 17 people in Manipur. Many still feared buried. Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra begins in Puri. President, Vice President and Prime Minister greet people. Rath Yatra also held in other parts of the country. That's all we have time for in this bulletin. For more updates, keep watching Sansad Television. Good night.